everybody, Joe Brady. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about a product. Why? Well, because I got up this morning, it was -1, so I'm not going outside. It's been really cold here, and finally tomorrow we're supposed to have a break. So what I wanted to talk about is prime lenses. A lot of people debate them. Some people think they're the greatest thing ever. Some people aren't real fond of them. So we're here to talk a little bit about what they can do, what they can't do, and where they might fit in what you want to do. So I brought a couple of samples, and first of all, what is the whole thing about prime lenses? Well, the basic thing is they're prime. What does that mean? It means they don't zoom. They're a fixed focal length. So if you want to get closer, if you want to make something bigger in the frame, well, you have to get closer to it. If you got wider, then you got to back up. There's no zooming on a prime lens. But it has advantages too. So what are those advantages? Well, one, they have a tendency to be a lot smaller than a zoom lens because there's less elements inside it to be moving around. Two, they're very light because of that. And three, they're often very fast. And when someone describes a fast lens, what they're saying is that it lets a lot of light in, and that means you can get shots in subdued light that you normally wouldn't be able to get. Just to show you a couple of examples. This is my Fuji 16 to 80, which on a full frame camera translates to a 24 to 120 basically. Well, I'm going to compare that to my 25mm f1.8 and look at the difference. So here's the difference between those two lenses. Yes, this is a heck of a lot easier to carry around. I also have an even faster lens with me today. This is a 50mm 1.2. It's a little bit bigger lens, but you can still see it's a fraction of the size of my bigger zoom lens here. Now, occasionally prime lenses can be big if you have something specialized. And I've got one right here. It's actually pretty much as tall as my 16 to 80. And the reason for that is this is a specialty lens. This is a Rokinon 8mm. And you can see from the glass, how the glass sticks out. This is a super wide angle lens. This is something I would use for astrophotography. Which brings us to the point, what are the good things to do with the prime lens? What are they good at? Well, portrait photography for some people. Now, going to something like a 25 is going to be too wide on a person because it's going to spread things out, it's going to distort the face a bit. But when you get to a 50, especially something like this, a 51.2, this is actually a good lens for a portrait, particularly since I shoot APS-C cameras. That means that this has a full frame equivalent of 75mm. Now, 75mm 1.2 lens could be pretty nice for portraits. Now, understand that what we're talking about is getting a really shallow depth of field so that the background really just blurs to nothing. You can't understand what it is, but the advantage to that is it's no distractions from your subject. You don't want to focus too close with these because if I were to bring this to its minimum focal distance, which I think on this 50 is about ½ a meter, so 1.5 feet. If I get this close to something, the depth of field is going to be extremely narrow, like this big. What does that mean? Well, if you try to shoot a portrait up that close, if the eyes are sharp, both the nose and the ears are going to be out of focus. Might be a little extreme, might need to back off a little bit. Now for astrophotography, having wrong lens. So for astrophotography, something like this 8mm Rokinon is a great lens because it allows you to keep the shutter open longer without getting star trails. Subject for another day, but I just wanted to share that with you. By the way, both of these lenses that I use, these are the two primes that I primarily will play with. Both of these are manual focus lenses. Now, if you're doing street photography, you're probably going to want to have one that's an autofocus. But if you're doing really close-up work and you really want to see what's in focus and what's not, I'm a big fan of manual focus lenses. Now, another subject that I like to photograph using a prime well, it's actually a combination of things. One, food photography, and two, small product photography. There's a style of food photography where just the front of the dish is being shown in sharp focus and then it quickly falls out of focus because a 25mm allows you to focus really close. And as you get really close, your depth of field shrinks down to nothing. So what's the downside of prime lenses? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, you can't zoom with them. If you want to get closer to something, you have to get closer. If you want to get more in, you have to back up. So in essence, it's called zooming with your feet. Now, can you stop these down and get lots of depth of field? Absolutely. I can go f16, f22 on both of these lenses and they operate just fine. But for me as a landscape photographer, out in the landscape it doesn't work for me because I need to zoom to be able to nail down my composition. I need to make sure that the distant objects are coming a little bit closer. I'll typically use a slightly longer lens so that I can get that depth of field compression. They're very handy. They're great for certain things, as I mentioned. They're good for portraits. They're great for food and product photography. They're great for astrophotography. Those are the three times that I find a prime lens to be something to explore. So check out the article. This is mostly about talking about the lenses. I went into a little more depth in the article in today's Monday Morning Coffee. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. Oh, and by the way, check it out. You can see how to buy me a coffee. I would love that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you online again soon. Bye-bye.